Text as you entered into the sanctuary. Hopefully folks picked up a little sheet. And I wanted to share something with you. Gosh, I feel like it's just a difficult week. I really do. And I've shared this with you a few times, and people are feeling less certain and less settled. And how do we respond? I think I can tell you that things are going to be okay, but how do I know? How do any of us know? I can tell you what I feel and what I think, and I can hopefully share an opinion. Maybe it makes people feel better, but I think if we're going to grow faith, we have to kind of go back to the bedrock. And if we're going to deal with hard things, I think it's so much easier to deal with them if we're grounded in something. So I'm sharing this text with you instead of the typical kind of sermon, and hopefully we'll talk about it for a little bit. Just for a little bit. This is from the Gemara. This is from the section of the Talmud. And it's actually all about the Messiah. Now, lots of Reform synagogues don't spend a lot of time talking about the Messiah. I know that. And so some of us were like, is he really doing this? But you have to understand something. This might be a different understanding of what a Messiah could be. That's one possibility. Maybe it reinforces your idea of what a Mashiach, Messiah, is. And by the way, the Messiah in Jewish tradition has not yet come. We're still waiting, just to be clear. And not only has the Messiah not yet come, it's going to be an ordinary human being, not a child of God any different than how you and I are children of God. So it's going to be an ordinary human being who is extraordinary. And the Messiah is going to usher in this time of perfect peace and harmony. No more war, no more bloodshed, no more poverty. All good. And the one who announces the coming of the Messiah, there's a special honor to Elijah. Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet. So when we open the door at the end of the Passover Seder, for those that go back to the Seder after a big meal, there's more, by the way. You open the doors, and there's an invitation for Elijah the prophet to come in and have that fifth cup of wine, because that's a sign of real redemption. But we're still waiting. Even when a child is being born in the Jewish community, there's a Brit service. Brit means covenant. So whether it's Brit Milah for our sons or Brit Chaim for our daughters, we have a Brit moment, this covenantal moment, and we have a chair for Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet, because this kid could be the one. It's kind of an amazing idea that our children could be the ones to usher in this world of peace and harmony. That's kind of what we're looking at behind the scenes. We'll see if that shifts a little bit after the text. But I want to look at this text with you. So we'll stick to the English. Is that all right? Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi met Elijah the prophet standing at the entrance of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai's tomb. So Yochai is the traditional author of the Zohar. Well, Danny Matt was here. We had a scholar in residence who said, well, that wasn't true. But in Jewish tradition, it's ascribed to him. He's this mystic, and people still will visit his tomb. So Rabbi Yeshua asked Elijah, will I go to the world to come? And Elijah replied, if the master wants you to. And Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, said, I saw two, but I heard the sound of three. It's kind of confusing. It's often interpreted to mean that he hears his voice and he hears Elijah's voice, but there's another voice, and that's the Shekhinah, God's divine presence. Then he asked, when will the Messiah come? And Elijah replied, go and ask him. So Yeshua says, where is he staying? This is fabulous. At the gateway of the town. Now, this translation says at this town that we don't really know, but in the Aramaic, it's hinting at Rome. It's kind of amazing that the Messiah could be sitting at a gateway in Rome, because who are the Romans to these early rabbis? Who's Rome? The oppressor, and eventually the destroyer of everything that's familiar to the Jewish people. So in Rome is where the Messiah sits. It's kind of an amazing idea. Let's think about that a little bit later. How will I recognize him? Well, Elijah says, he sat among the poor who are suffering and sick. Everyone else unties all of their bandages at once and then rebandages them one by one. So imagine a gateway where the poor are, the ill and frail and vulnerable folks. And when they need to change their bandages, they take all of the bandages off, and then they're going to put them all back on again. And the Messiah is the one that's helping. So that's what it says next. They do it all at once, but he unties and rebandages one wound at a time because he is thinking, perhaps I will be needed and I must not be late. So on one hand, that's kind of cute. The Messiah doesn't want to be late. Okay. But if you go deeper, if the Messiah is the one who is binding up these wounds one at a time and knows that there's an urgency for this job. There's an urgency, but first I have to take care of the people that are wounded until it's time. We're going to come back to that. So he, Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, went to him, the Messiah, and said, "Greetings to you, my rabbi, my teacher." The Messiah replied, "Greetings to you, ben Levi, son of Levi." He asked him, "When will you come, master?" And the Messiah replied, "Today." Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi went back to Elijah, who asked him, "What did he say to you?" And Yehoshua ben Levi replied, he said, "Greetings to you, ben Levi, son of Levi." And Elijah said, "Well, that assures both you and your father both have a place in the world to come. Thank you very much." But this is the big part. He says he lied to me. Reb Yehoshua says the Messiah lied to me. He said he would come today and he didn't come. And Elijah replied, "What he said to you was today, if you listen," which is quoting from a psalm. The Messiah can come today if you listen. What could this mean? This is one of the classic texts of the Gemara. And I'm sharing it with you because I feel like so many of us are feeling off balance. And an attack again in Poway makes us feel vulnerable. And then North Carolina. And how many thens are there going to be? And what do I have to share with you? The only thing I get to share with you really is hope. And that's in this text. Because the Messiah, the one that's going to bring peace and harmony, is busy taking care of the vulnerable and the afflicted and the folks who are ill and have wounds all over their bodies and taking care of them one bandage at a time. In Rome, in the homeland of the folks that destroyed the Second Temple and sent us back out into exile. What an amazing moment. And I understand Yehoshua's desire to have a greater understanding because we have the same questions. Why is this happening? Why me in my life? Why these folks in Charlotte? Why these folks in wherever, name a town? Why is this happening? He wants to have the same answers that we seek. But the thing that is provocative to me is, and we can spend some real time talking about this text, is who is this Messiah? It's the one taking care of the vulnerable. Does it have to be one single person in the world? Can it be you? Can it be me? Can we have sparks of the Messiah in us and activate those sparks so that some good can happen? Can we be the ones to change the world? Do we have to keep waiting for somebody else to do it? Well, what are we waiting for? We have jobs. I have a job too. I get it. We have responsibilities. We have to pay our taxes. Hopefully you did that by now. There's carpools that are never ending. But that's not really true. Those are just the excuses. Can we find the sparks of the Messiah and perhaps go to a place where we feel vulnerable to kind of take care of somebody else? How can we possibly do that? Why someone with such wounds is encountering the Messiah, and why is Joshua angry? I think it can be today. I think we can be the Messiah for someone, maybe once in our whole lives. Maybe you can have an impact on somebody and never know it. You can transform somebody's world in a moment, in an act of kindness, or just being present. Can we be the Messiah for one? And I think we can. So that means that the Messiah's answer in the text that says today wasn't a lie. It's only going to be today if you listen. So my message to you is the Messiah is the personified, it's the personification of social justice. The Messiah is responding one person at a time to change the world for a better. Why do we feel like we have to have it all at once? I never really understood that. So maybe there isn't one Messiah that's going to change the world. Maybe there's millions. But God's just kind of waiting for us to do our part. And maybe I'm wrong and there's just one. I'm not, that's possible. But it doesn't matter. Because if I'm going to choose my life, how to live my life, one action at a time, one encounter at a time, one handshake at a time, one moment of presence at a time, well then, does it really matter if there's going to be many or just one? So friends, I've said it before, I'm going to say it again tonight. There's no action in this world that can take place that will rob me of my hope. And I don't want that to happen for you too. Hope is not wishful thinking. It's a conviction. It's the way we see the world. And if you can have a worldview to see the world through this Jewish lens, or among other lenses, of course, but for this house, through a Jewish lens, to extend our arms and make a difference, well, then you might as well be the Messiah. So let's get to work. Let's get to work. Let's turn